Guys, welcome back to another video on what if Deku had the power of the 4 heavenly beasts, part 6. Now, I'm just going to jump into this what if really quickly, but before I jump into that, I'm going to shout out the people that joined the Discord. Thank you, Wolford Snow, or actually, no, it would just be Wolf Lord Snow, my bad. Wolfpack 009, Panda God, Dartian, Darriton, Scarlet Bear, Phaser, 123, and I'm guessing his alt account, Phaser213, and Silver Moon. Thank you all for joining the Discord. If you guys want to go join the Discord, go down in the description down below. There are tons of people. We talk, we chill. I hang out over there. I talk and chill. Also, if you want to join any of the events that I do, you can go ahead and go join that, and it will show up, and you'll be in announcements. So, yeah. So if you want to do that, go ahead and join. And let's jump straight into this what if. After Izuku woke up, he had realized he'd been out for a day. He found that weird, to say the least, but decided against taking any actions to rectify him being, well, unconscious for the time being. Izuku then, after waking up, quickly walked over to school. He heals at an abnormal rate now, which confused most of the doctors there, but they chalked it up to his quirk. To be more accurate, the phoenix-based form of his quirk. So him healing seemed to be pretty normal for a phoenix, but they thought it was pretty cool nonetheless. Of course, Izuku came really early, so it confused most people, the students who were there. Most of the students being scared that maybe Izuku himself was actually not feeling well and just came to school out of forced repercussions. Of course, this wasn't the case scenario, as Izuku quickly explained how he just came to, well, go to class like a normal student would. This caused most of the other students there to calm down a decent amount of degree. It confused Izuku why they were freaking out so much. But then some of the students stated that Izuku was kinda heavily injured. So they thought it was all in, well, good and fairness to freak out about him. Which Izuku took as a sidle nod to not get injured again, or not get injured to that extent. God. Sorry, there was an eyelash in my eye. Izuku sat down. He found out that they were actually just meant to be training currently for 2 weeks for the festival, which Izuku was kind of happy about. He wanted to understand and learn more about the sports festival, which was something he hadn't previously trained at all. Knowing that he needed to actually train, Izuku was actually quite excited. Izuku started off by training very simply. He already knew all fair and well about the abilities of his phoenix, turtle, and tiger form. He just wanted to see if there was any capabilities of increasing these forms. Of course, Izuku knew the chances themselves were very slim. He still wanted to try to find out. The implications of increasing the power of his abilities, well, of course, would be very immense. It could help him out a lot with most of the things he needs to do, and even some of the ones that he really didn't need that much help in, it would still be quite useful. So Izuku took this as a great opportunity to increase his proficiency with his forms. Of course, over the 2-week period, Izuku found multiple new things about his forms that was very confusing for him. Each form seemed to have a reliable skill set, and almost seemed to also have a unique mind of his own, which was very confusing to Izuku. He knew his forms were albeit it seemed to have some sort of containment of power or something similar to that. But Izuku didn't expect for them to have some sort of mental ability on their own. Also, every night he started to see weird dreams, almost like trance-like factions, where his forms appeared. Of course, he wasn't actually taking the form itself, but it was still weird. The base fact that his ability was acting this way showed Izuku that there was something that he didn't even know his forms were capable of doing. And this intrigued, yet also slightly scared him. For the mere factor that his quirks and his forms seemed to be sentient, he was wondering if he was actually just borrowing the power of beings rather than having a quirk based around them. Izuku was very interested in this little side factor. For all the training, he also seemed to notice that there seemed to be a figure in the background. Of course, Izuku never knew who this figure was, but the figure seemed to be very strong, almost stronger than all of his other forms. He didn't know who the figure was, but it kept appearing more and more and more, which caused Izuku mild strife and confusement over time. Izuku eventually went to go ask All Might. Even though All Might and Izuku weren't nearly as close as they are in canon, All Might was still a relatively easy teacher to confide in, causing Izuku to simply just confide in the man. All Might was very intrigued by Izuku's quirk. He had never heard of a quirk quite like Izuku's. All Might also knew that One for All also had a very similar effect of seeming to store spirits of sorts, and thought maybe Izuku just got lucky and his quirk did somewhat of the same sort of thing. Then again, albeit luck and curse seem to go hand in hand. Because yes, these forms seem to be teaching Izuku something that Izuku couldn't fully grasp. It also seems to be tainting the boy's mind slightly. They're definitely in there, so the pure factor that they are able to communicate with Izuku through the dreams was scary enough. Especially with this fourth thing that seemed to be quite absent. It was never apparent in the visions, but it seemed to be there still, in the background, lurking. All Might anticipated this as a new form, maybe one that Izuku hadn't been able to unlock yet. Izuku thought about the same thing. He also didn't know what this form would be. Izuku decided to do research about the four heavenly beasts, or at least about the three he already knew. He seemed to embody the three heavenly beasts being the white tiger, the black turtle, or warrior depending on how you heard the fable, and the vermilion phoenix. But there was also a fourth being, this being being the azure dragon. Now, even though none of the forms were directly stated to be higher in power than any of the other forms, the fact that the azure dragon seemed to fit well with the rest of his quirk, Izuku assumed that maybe that was this looming figure in the background. Of course, Izuku didn't have any claims to back that up, nor had he accidentally or ever intentionally unlocked the form itself. While be it just a theory, Izuku thought that this was the most grounded theory he had currently. And granted, it was. Izuku didn't know much else about his own quirk. When Izuku really looked at it, he just knew he could transform into animals and gain characteristics based off the animals. And even some of the characteristics of the animals actually tend to stay with him in base form after you transform them once. For example, the base ability to actually be able to use his regeneration ability when he's not in his Vermilion Phoenix form was something that Izuku took not lightly, to say the least. It was proof of concept that Izuku's abilities seemed to be, well, pretty massive in his base biology, which caused the boy to wonder more. He's always had an interest for quirks, but now that Izuku's own quirk seemed to interest him more than any others. This caused Izuku mild strife from time to time, but he knew that it wasn't any major issue, and that he should probably just continue on with what he was doing. His base aspect of understanding of his quirk was pretty massive compared to what most people would classify as their understanding of their quirk. When it got down to it, he even did the cultural research behind it. But the only issue is that he doesn't know how this pertains to his quirk. Then again, through the 2 weeks of training, he slowly mastered his quirk bit by bit. He still had yet to unlock what he presumed to be his fourth and final form, his Azure Dragon form, which was a unique thing to say the least. Izuku figured he just hasn't had a need for it. There was nothing that pushed him to the point where he needed a new form. This was Izuku's standing theory that anytime he needed a new form, something would give him that form. So when he needed increased defense, that form was given to him, being the black turtle. Or when he needed increased agility or offense, he was given his white tiger. And when he just needed overwhelming offense, he was given his Vermilion Phoenix. So Izuku wondered, what would he need to get his Azure Dragon form? It seemed confusing to him how the base aspect of his form and the requirements that he needed for it wasn't even very apparent. He just needed a catalyst. Izuku didn't know what that catalyst would be, but he knew he needed it. Heck, for all he knew, it could be something as simple as just having to go ahead and go get somewhere quickly. Maybe that was the catalyst. Or it could be something way worse, something so much worse that even Izuku couldn't explain what it could be. The thought of it being something so bad that he had no clue terrified Izuku slightly. If it wasn't for the base aspect that he trusted the capabilities of everyone he knew, Izuku was afraid that he might go out of control, that he might lose his capabilities and fall in under control of what seems to be the beasts. Even though they had shown no signs of hostility, Izuku was still relatively scared. Just the pure aspect of it to him was enough to shake him to his core. Of course, this came up with its own myriad of issues, causing Izuku to freak out even more. But he decided to put it off. Seeing how the sports festival was less than 2 days away, Izuku excited himself. He was ready. He had been training all this time in preparation for it. He also knew very well that his capabilities should be able to help him get at least a decent position. In worst case scenario, if he had to ever fight one of his other classmates, Izuku's quirk was probably the strongest out of all of them. Even Bakugo admitted that Izuku was most likely stronger than him. Of course, begrudgingly, but he still had done it. Izuku knew all fair and well that his quirk could easily cause issues, though. If he fought against anyone, he couldn't even activate his Vermilion Phoenix form, unless if he want to almost semi-guarantee death for that person, which Izuku knew would never be allowed. He had only used it that one time because he went into pure rage, knowing that he needed to use that form. Izuku sighed, understanding that the next week was going to be a very long week. The week started off pretty simple. Everyone gathered. The whole entire event caused the crowd in the stands to be pretty excited. And granted, all the students were the same, so there wasn't much of a difference between the students to the crowd. Izuku could tell that some of his classmates were relatively nervous, but decided not to make any comments. He's noticed that his perception had gone up a little bit in recent time. He didn't know why his perception of people went up, but it seemed to go up a decent amount. He could definitely tell if there was any underlying things about the reason why his perception had gone up. Or about people's intentions, my bad. Izuku decided that now was the time to hopefully show off his maximum power. After the opening ceremony was done, it was explained to them that they would be doing a very simple starting race. But the winner of this race would get 10,000 points. Now see, this excited Izuku a lot more than any other prospect. Getting 10 million points, not 10,000, my bad, was pretty big and could easily set him up for the rest of the game. But Izuku also figured that there was a hint of some sort of dishonesty inside Midnight's voice. He could tell that there was something else that she wasn't making entirely clear. But Izuku figured this pertained to later on and after this event, figuring that it was probably something akin to, I don't know, maybe having his points removed if something happened. But the point removal must have been pretty big if they're willing to give out 10 million at the start. Or just semi-big. Izuku didn't know. When the race began, Izuku started off in his base form, confusing most of his classmates, until Todoroki decided to create ice. Izuku knew all fair and well that he couldn't actually go into his Vermilion Phoenix form, which is what he was planning to take. There was going to be multiple obstacles up ahead, and if Izuku could just fly over them all, there wouldn't be an issue. So he decided to use his Vermilion Phoenix, but seeing the ice happened, he transformed into his blue turtle form. Izuku realized something. Transforming into his blue turtle form seemed to give him, well, a higher increased chance at controlling more water-based subjects around him. Almost like his Bijo form gave him the ability to, well, control and manipulate more air-based subjects. Or how his Vermilion Phoenix helped him manipulate fire-based objects. This also caused Izuku's mind to wonder about what would allow him to manipulate other objects, like, well, for a simplest understanding, in his fourth form. Izuku knew that each form tend to have a general theme related to it, or a general element, but Izuku also knew that none of these elements tend to persist with Izuku's himself, which caused him to wonder more. Of course, after clearing the water out of the way, Izuku quickened his pace. As soon as he left the cave, he walked away from the path, confusing most of the onlookers and spectators. But once they saw that Izuku had transformed, their confusion was gone in almost an instant. They could see the ground melt around Izuku, so they knew he had stepped away to ensure the safety of the other students, which gave him a bonus in commendability by most of the people that was watching. Izuku then quickly flew, soaring past everyone below him. Bakugo had saw this and decided to mimic it by flying. Of course, he could barely even keep up with Izuku, and that was before Izuku even decided to go full out because Bakugo was right behind him. After that, Bakugo couldn't even get close to Izuku. Izuku came in first place, as he got the 10 million points. And that's where I'm going to leave this episode off, guys. If you liked it, hit the like button, and if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, goodbye.